What if Ferrari has finally discovered the weakness that has been keeping the SF-26 from becoming a real threat to Mercedes? For months, Ferrari has shown flashes of serious speed. Through the corners, the SF-26 can look extremely competitive, sometimes even appearing stronger than the championship standings would suggest. But whenever the track opens up and the cars spend long periods at full throttle, another story begins to emerge. Straight-line performance has been one of Ferrari's biggest limitations. Now, however, Maranello appears ready to attack that weakness directly. A new floor is expected around Zandvoort, while a heavily revised turbo is being prepared for Monza. And if those two developments work as Ferrari hopes, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc could suddenly have a much more complete weapon in their hands. Mercedes may still lead the championship, but Ferrari's development plan suggests that the gap could become much less comfortable than it looks right now. After the Belgian Grand Prix, Mercedes leads the Constructors' Championship with 379 points, while Ferrari has 307, leaving a 72-point difference between the two teams. In the Drivers' Championship, Kimi Antonelli leads with 219 points, Lewis Hamilton follows with 169, George Russell has 160, Charles Leclerc has 138, Lando Norris has 128, and Max Verstappen has 109. Those numbers tell us something important. Ferrari is not entering the next phase of the season from a position of dominance. It is trying to recover ground, and that means every upgrade has to count. Every qualifying lap matters. Every strategic decision matters. And perhaps most importantly, both Ferrari drivers need to start taking points away from Mercedes consistently. Hamilton is still within striking distance of Antonelli, but Ferrari cannot build a championship challenge around one driver alone. If Maranello wants to seriously attack Mercedes in the constructors' fight, Charles Leclerc has to become a regular front-running threat as well. That is why the unusual performance profile of the SF-26 is so fascinating. Ferrari already appears capable of producing strong cornering performance. The car can generate impressive speed in sections where aerodynamic behavior and mechanical grip are critical. But when the circuit becomes dominated by long straights, acceleration zones, and heavy braking, Ferrari's advantage becomes much less obvious. And that is exactly what makes Monza such an important moment. Monza is almost impossible to hide at. The circuit is built around long straights, heavy braking zones, and acceleration. If a car lacks power, carries too much drag, or struggles to maintain acceleration at high speed, the stopwatch will reveal it immediately. There is nowhere for a team to hide behind a complicated corner sequence. So if Ferrari has genuinely managed to reduce its straight-line deficit, Monza could provide one of the clearest pieces of evidence yet. But if the weakness remains, the circuit will expose that just as quickly. Ferrari's development strategy is therefore becoming one of the most interesting stories surrounding the SF-26. Instead of simply adding upgrades without a clear direction, the team appears to be approaching the problem in stages. Zandvoort could provide the first major aerodynamic test, with a new floor expected to improve the behavior and efficiency of the car. Then, when Ferrari reaches Monza, attention will shift toward the power unit, with a revised turbo expected to become one of the most important developments of the season. This separation is important because Ferrari needs to understand exactly where its performance gains are coming from. If the SF-26 suddenly becomes faster, engineers need to know whether the improvement is coming from the floor, the power unit, the interaction between the two, or simply from the characteristics of the circuit. The engine side of the story becomes even more interesting because Ferrari has reportedly received additional development opportunities under Formula One's 2026 ADUO system. The system was introduced to give manufacturers whose internal combustion engine performance falls sufficiently behind the benchmark additional opportunities to develop their power units. But there is a crucial point here. This is not simply a system designed to hand Ferrari free performance. It does not mean that the FIA is giving Ferrari extra horsepower or deliberately slowing down Mercedes. Instead, the rules provide additional development opportunities and cost cap allowances for manufacturers that fall behind the required threshold. According to the reports referenced in the original story, Ferrari was judged to be more than 4% behind Red Bull's benchmark ICE performance, placing the team into a category eligible for 2 additional upgrade opportunities in 2026. That could be extremely important for Maranello, because Ferrari has effectively been given more room to search for the performance it currently lacks. But more development freedom does not automatically mean more speed. Ferrari still has to make the right technical decisions. The FIA's assessment focuses on controlled measurements involving factors such as engine speed, input shaft torque, and MGU-K power, along with lap time sensitivity. Importantly, the assessment focuses specifically on the internal combustion engine rather than treating the entire power unit as one simple number. The electrical side of the system remains a major part of overall performance. That means Ferrari cannot simply chase more combustion power and assume the entire car will automatically become faster. Engineers must integrate any additional engine performance with electrical deployment, battery management, energy harvesting, cooling, reliability, and aerodynamic efficiency. In other words, the challenge is not merely to create a more powerful engine. The challenge is to create a power unit that delivers more usable performance without creating another weakness somewhere else. Ferrari's first response has already involved engine-related work and fuel development, including revised shell fuel and calibration changes aimed at extracting additional performance. But the more aggressive step could come after the summer break, when the revised turbo is expected to arrive. And this is where the turbocharger becomes particularly important. Ferrari's weakness may not simply be about one missing horsepower figure. The bigger question is how effectively the power unit can continue delivering performance once the car is already traveling at very high speed. An engine can feel strong during acceleration and still lose ground when the straight becomes longer and the car spends more time operating near the top end of its performance window. That is exactly the area Ferrari needs to improve. There have already been plenty of rumors about how much horsepower the revised package might produce, but those claims should be treated carefully. Ferrari has not publicly confirmed every dramatic horsepower figure circulating around the new package, and even a huge number on a dyno would mean very little if that performance could not be translated into reliable race pace. The real evidence will come from lap times, speed traces, acceleration, long-run performance, and consistency. And that is why Monza could become something close to a laboratory for Ferrari's new concept. If the SF-26 can exit corners strongly and then continue accelerating effectively along the long straights, Ferrari could finally remove one of the biggest limitations that has separated it from Mercedes. That would fundamentally change the way Hamilton and Leclerc can race. Instead of relying almost entirely on cornering performance and difficult braking zone overtakes, Ferrari could potentially attack and defend with a much more complete package. But there is another major problem Maranello has to solve, and it is visible directly in the championship standings. Hamilton currently has 169 points, while Leclerc has 138. Together, those two drivers account for Ferrari's 307 Constructors' Championship points. Mercedes, meanwhile, has Antonelli on 219 and Russell on 160, giving the team 379 points. That difference demonstrates that Mercedes is not relying on only one driver to build its advantage. Both sides of the Mercedes garage are consistently contributing. Ferrari needs the same thing. Hamilton has already demonstrated that he can win races, but a Constructors' Championship cannot be won by one driver alone. If Leclerc continues finishing behind both Mercedes cars on a regular basis, Ferrari could improve its performance without actually closing the championship gap. Every podium matters. Every second-place finish matters. Even turning a fourth-place result into a second or third could become crucial over the remaining races. Ferrari needs both cars operating at maximum efficiency. And the championship battle is not even a simple Ferrari versus Mercedes story. McLaren and Red Bull can completely change the mathematics. Norris currently has 128 points, while Verstappen has 109. Imagine Hamilton finishes second, Antonelli wins, and Norris finishes third. The point swing would be very different from a Mercedes 1-2. Now imagine Verstappen wins while the Mercedes drivers finish behind him. Suddenly, Mercedes loses valuable points while Ferrari has an opportunity to recover ground. Every major rival can potentially act as a buffer between Ferrari and Mercedes. That is why one spectacular Monza weekend would not be enough. Ferrari needs a sequence of strong results. The upgrades have to work across multiple circuits, different temperatures, different tire conditions, and different race situations. Development only becomes meaningful when it turns into championship points repeatedly. Mercedes, meanwhile, cannot afford to ignore what Ferrari is doing. Reliability has already cost the championship leader valuable points during the season, and the pressure will increase dramatically if Ferrari starts getting closer on pure performance. If the SF-26 becomes competitive on the straights as well as in the corners, Mercedes may no longer be able to depend on having a clear advantage in one specific area. Toto Wolff and the Mercedes organization would then have to decide how aggressively to respond while protecting the reliability of a package that is already carrying championship pressure. There is also a deeper technical lesson behind Ferrari's ADUO opportunity. Additional development freedom is valuable only if the team uses it correctly. Ferrari still has to identify the right weakness, choose the right solution, and make that solution work within the entire architecture of the car. A wrong development direction could consume time, resources, and opportunities without delivering the performance Maranello needs. That is why the Zandvoort floor and the Monza Turbo are much more than two ordinary upgrades. Together, they could provide a major test of whether Ferrari has correctly understood the weaknesses of the SF-26. At Zandvoort, Ferrari will want to discover whether the new floor can improve aerodynamic consistency and maintain performance as fuel loads, tire conditions, and track temperatures change. Then comes Monza, where power unit performance and aerodynamic efficiency will face an entirely different challenge. If Ferrari becomes stronger through the corners at Zandvoort and then stronger on the straights at Monza, the team could finally have real evidence that its development direction is working. And then there is Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton arrived at Ferrari with enormous expectations, and his battle with Antonelli has become one of the major individual stories of the 2026 season. Antonelli currently holds a 50-point advantage over Hamilton, 219 to 169. That is a significant gap, but it is not necessarily impossible to overcome if Ferrari can suddenly provide Hamilton with a car capable of fighting Mercedes across different types of circuits. However, Hamilton cannot do it alone. Leclerc has to be there too. Ferrari needs two cars capable of taking major points away from Mercedes every weekend. So what would actually prove that Ferrari has solved its biggest problem? It will not be a rumor. It will not be a dyno number. And it will not be one impressive qualifying lap. The real proof will come when Ferrari can produce the improvement repeatedly. If the SF-26 remains strong through the corners, finally becomes competitive on the straights, allows Hamilton and Leclerc to maintain that pace during long stints, and keeps the power unit reliable under maximum load, then Mercedes will be facing a very different Ferrari. And that is the real danger for the championship leader. Ferrari does not need to become dominant overnight. It simply needs to close enough of the gap to turn every race into a genuine fight. Once that happens, Mercedes can no longer rely on a comfortable championship advantage. Every qualifying session becomes more important. Every strategy call becomes more dangerous. Every reliability problem becomes more expensive. That is why the next two major tests could be so important for Maranello. Zandvoort will show whether Ferrari's aerodynamic direction is working. Monza will reveal whether the power unit changes have finally attacked the straight-line weakness that has been holding the SF-26 back. And after that, the championship standings will provide the ultimate verdict. If these upgrades deliver, Ferrari may have found exactly what Mercedes did not want to see before Monza, an SF-26 that is no longer easy to beat in the very area where it was once vulnerable. And if Hamilton and Leclerc can convert that technical progress into major points, the 72-point Constructors' Championship gap could suddenly start looking much less comfortable. So the question is no longer whether Ferrari can build a faster car. The real question is whether Ferrari can make it fast enough, reliable enough, and soon enough to force Mercedes into a championship fight all over again.